A new book titled Unchain Australia was recently published in Perth.
There are major problems facing Australia. They include governments who are using a virus as an excuse to increase their power massively, large and growing influence by the Chinese Communist Party, which bribes Australian politicians from all major political parties and infiltrates its way into every organisation that it has a chance of controlling.
The book is themed around the challenges and conflicts faced by Australian society under the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, globalisation and claims of climate change, as well as infiltration into our society by the Chinese Communist Party. The book contains articles by 23 mostly Australian authors, including outstanding legal scholars. 7 authors from Western Australia contributed 16 chapters, adding up to half the book. They were present at the premiere book launch held at the Sheridan Institute of Higher Education in Perth on August 23rd, and they gave speeches at the event.
The rule of law is not about governments making law, otherwise everyone, even North Korea, would have the rule of law. Yeah. The rule of law means a set of values and principles that we have acquired as a result of centuries of fight for freedom.
The outbreak of the coronavirus, sometimes called the CCP virus, is changing the world. How governments have been responding to the pandemic has caused people to worry about their basic human rights and freedoms being infringed upon by politicians.
Well, vaccine passports, which were denied vehemently only 6 months ago, are now being implemented across Australia.
So from my scientific background, I realised that a lot of what we're being told was a lot nonsense. The vaccines will be ineffective, and there's never been a vaccine for a coronavirus.
The vaccination itself is the excuse to get us into a system very much like China with a social credit score where if you want to do anything, you will basically have to do what the government says.
Globalisation and climate change fear have profoundly affected Australia's political and economic landscape as well.
The next chapter is on net zero emissions for Australia. To achieve net zero emissions by 2050 is, in my opinion, and based on my research, an impossible task.
The government's leading us astray, which will cause a lot of pain when we enter a post-peak oil and the prices of fuels go up a lot, and we will become a lot poorer unless we're prepared for that time.
So I decided to actually put something into words, into simple words, and to demonstrate that in fact there's absolutely no emergency about it. What they actually talk about is relative sea level change. And that's what NASA is talking about all the time. It's relative sea level change. But it does not explain what is the difference between relative sea level change and the absolute sea level change.
This new book also exposes the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration and influence in WA.
Clive Hamilton wrote an excellent book about Australia, so I was focused on 100% on Western Australia. Instead of rejecting this ideology, our politicians, our business people have embraced it.
Michael Darby, who edited Unchain Australia, encouraged the audience to download the digital version and read it.
Australia is a nation in chains. We are determined to unchain Australia,